Welcome to the 2020 New Jersey CIO Executive Leadership Virtual Summit. I'm Hunter Muller, lead principal at HMG Strategy. My team and I are delighted to be here with you today. And I think we have a world-class program, a world-class agenda for you with amazing speakers that are really going to talk about the most timely topics that are relevant given this current global pandemic situation that we're all in, and the stressors that we're feeling both in our professional and personal life. I hope you stay with us for an hour and a half. Again, you won't want to miss it. The actual physical summit, folks, will be delayed to early summer, likely in July. We're shooting for an early July date. More to come on that. So a big thanks to our today's virtual meeting sponsor. Today is being powered by Zscaler. We'll hear more from Stan Lowe here in a minute, and all of our national partners and presenting partners that are supporting of the HMG platform. And most sincere appreciation for the New Jersey CIM chapter. We've been great partners now for, I think, about a decade as well. A little bit about HMG. Obviously, everyone's world changed dramatically about 30 days ago, and we pivoted digital, spun up our first digital summit with the CIO Summit of America, then most recently the Dallas Summit, over 200 participants, over 300 registered in both, a really lively discussion. Please dial into HMG Live and consider attending future virtual briefings, summits, as well as partner webinars, because our partners really do support the company and the model and make a difference. Upcoming HMG Live virtual events, including Sangi Vasta from Co-America Bank on the 13th, that's Monday, and then the 23rd, a rockstar panel live from San Francisco with Jerry Martin Flickinger, Sheila Jordan, Larry Quinlan, and John Repko. Really excited about that, as well as Bhavani will be April 20th, and then a webinar in early May. Look for in May, probably we'll be launching at least 5 virtual summits. More to come on that soon. Thank you. And again, thank you for zooming in today. Real excited to introduce our first presenter. It's Mark Polansky, Senior Client Partner at Korn Ferry. Mark's been a great friend of mine and a friend of the HMG model for over 13 years. And really one of the industry leading search executives, one of the leading thought leaders on what really matters in leadership, in designing and developing your career ascent. Incredible background, as well as a great supporter of the HMG platform. Mark, welcome.
Well, thank you, Hunter. It's a pleasure to be here. I have to live up to the billing now, but I think I can do that. Thank you for making time for me on the program today, Hunter, and thanks to the HMG staff for not only making it easy to participate, but for being so passionate about staying connected with the CIO, CTO, IT exec leader community out there. And thank you, everyone, for dialing in, for staying engaged on the HMG platform, and for allowing me to share a couple of thoughts about leadership, especially at this crazy time. The idea of the self-disruptive leader is not new. It's just a new perspective on looking at agility and the ability to pivot. This is a topic that began development last year in 2019, long before the COVID-19 outbreak, but it occurred to Hunter and me that this would be especially a good topic to broach at this time. Some of you may know that we do a survey every year called the Pulse Survey. It's board directors, it's CXOs, the C-suite, and PE and venture capital investors. And last year, a whole year ago, they told us that the companies that they're involved in are facing disruptive change. And over 60% said that they were having trouble imagining and forecasting where that was going to come from. I think a certain amount of that was, gee, maybe it's Amazon or maybe it's somebody else, but regardless, 60% plus percent are unsure where competition is coming from, and that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. The other thing that the survey pointed us towards in this context was about 2/3 saying that transformation and disruption makes leadership even more critical to their investment choices and to the performance of their investment choices. And then tragically, 2/3 think that the traditional leadership, traditional legacy methodology of leadership is not fit for the future. So we came to the conclusion that everybody else has pretty much come to, is that disruptive times make traditional leadership models obsolete. So command and control, proscribed management dictums, all the classic methodologies of leadership just aren't hacking it anymore. And so the ability to change, the ability to be agile and pivot and adapt becomes all that much more critical. And we said to ourselves, if we can disrupt business models, and we can all think of the Netflixes of the world and disrupt companies that have changed business models, in fact, entire industries, think of the transportation industry, and yes, countries. I was out to lunch a couple of weeks ago, actually a couple of weeks before the stay-at-home movement. I was out to lunch with the former founder and CEO of Cognizant Technology, and he's a gentleman with an Indian background, and he said to me that his entire country had been disrupted by technology. And I thought about it for a while. I'd never imagined that someone would say my country was disrupted, but he was very serious about it. And so all in all, if we can disrupt, be disruptive at the business level, at the company industry, and even the country model, we have to start thinking of ourselves as being disruptible. And so if I'm going to be proactive, and if I'm going to be self-determining, I also want to be self-disruptive. So what does self-disruptive mean? Just a quick word about Korn Ferry. Where is this coming from? Guys, you'll see on the screen now the 5 areas of our service delivery centers of excellence: organizational strategy, assessment and suggestion, talent acquisition, which is where I sit, leadership development, rewards and benefits. There's a 6th leg of the Korn Ferry stool. It's called the Korn Ferry Institute, which we funded. It is a non-for-profit research organization, and they do their work on massive amounts of data. With Korn Ferry doing assessments on all the people we place, with doing assessments on management teams and all the organizational designs that we do, and all the other activities that that produce and cast off data. This data, the volume here and the corresponding accuracy is just massive. We are the original big data search firm. And so what do you do with all this stuff? Well, we gave it all to Korn Ferry Institute, and they do ongoing research. And if you're interested, all of their research, not just the stuff we use, but all of their research is available online at kornferryinstitute.com. And there's some fascinating stuff there. What we want to bring here is the research and the getting from the data to what does it mean to be self-disruptive. There's a full report online which you can read and study about and learn about the study that got us here. But basically, our industrial psychologist partners said there are 5 key behaviors that they've observed out of all this data that defines the self-disruptive leader. And then the marketing guys put it together in an easy to remember acronym, ADAPT. So adapting is seeing around corners, the proverbial where is the puck going. Drive is not just driving yourself, but driving people around you, energizing people, motivating them, getting them to share your passion and vision. Accelerating is making sure that knowledge flows throughout the organization, and being nimble, partnering both internally and externally with those that can help you get where you're going faster. And lastly, trust. People being able to trust you and you being able to trust those around you. And there's a great book which Hunter and I talk about all the time, is The Speed of Trust by Covey. Highly recommended. One of the best business books I've ever read. So this adapt thing is a trait. It's a behavioral competency. It's not a skill. And so you can't teach it. You have to develop it. You have to train yourself to be a self-disruptive leader. And it's really all about changing your mindset, how you view things. None of this is new. It's just a new way to look at yourself and say to yourself every day, am I being adapt? Am I being adaptable? Am I being agile? Am I being a trusted partner, etc. So basic mindset, basic internal operating system. And this is what we're focused on, helping our clients develop leadership development programs, the ability to adapt. So takeaway item for this morning, if you like what you heard, develop yourself as a self-disruptive leader, identify and develop your self-disruptive leadership team. There is methodology behind this, there's science behind this, and as I said, you can go to the kornferryinstitute.com. There are also 2 URLs on the screen right now, one for this topic, self-disruption. Also, we have a pretty strong library of resources around the challenges of the coronavirus pandemic, and we welcome you to go there. Lastly, if you'd like a copy of my slides, just ping me and I'm happy to send them. If you're interested in talking to one of the SMEs that put this thing together, that did the research, please don't hesitate to call, write, or ping me. Love to hear from you. Hunter, thank you again.
Hey, Mark, great job. So a question for you, what percentage of all tech leaders at the C-level, CIO, CISO, CTO, would you say are self-disruptive? Any data there?
Yeah, by our estimates and looking at the data, the millions of people that are in our database, it's about 6.5 million people now. About a third would qualify as self-disruptive to one extent or another.
Excellent, thank you. And is it difficult to develop that trait?
Yeah, I think that's an individual question, Hunter. I think some folks will find it a little bit harder than others. But once you get into the idea, the mental thought pattern of changing a mindset to be disruptive, and what I've done in my office is I took that one slide, ADAPT on the left, I just copied that one slide and I have it up on my bulletin board right over my phone. So every day I ask myself, am I being adaptive? Am I being self-disruptive? Am I changing what I thought was the truth and creating a new truth?
And Mark, you're a big fan of being a lifelong learner. How does that play in this journey?
Yeah, great question. Even well before this self-disruptive concept, we pretty much knew, and I've been talking about this for a long time, is that the most successful executives of any stripe out there are mentally agile and are lifelong learners and learning adaptable. And so many of you who've heard me speak from an HMG panel have heard me say, don't stop learning, don't stop taking classes, don't stop reading, don't stop going to summits and dialing into webinars, and keep your mind growing and keep changing and keep being agile, mentally agile, and a lifelong learner.
Excellent, Mark. Thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing you next time virtually, in person, and at an HMG Summit. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Be safe. Next up, Stan Lowe, Global CISO of Zscaler. Stan, welcome to the show today.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's great to see you.
Oh, absolutely. Real
Uh,
quick, before we get started, I want to hammer home some of the things that Mark pointed out, because this, keeping with the thing of this is about, leadership through crisis. Leadership, from an IT person or a security person, often we've been technology leaders and not necessarily business leaders. One of the things, anybody can lead a successful organization, but the true test of leadership comes when there's a crisis, and you're in a crisis now. So you need to make sure that you start changing your mindset from where you've worked in the past to start thinking about how you can enable your businesses to do the things that you need to do, which is, either deliver goods and services to your constituency if you're a government or a public sector, or drive revenue and protect revenue if you're in the private sector. The other thing that is incredibly important are things like this: community. Oftentimes, when we're in the throes of battle and, the alligators are snapping and everybody's screaming at you and stuff like that, it's hard to remember that there are other people that have gone through this. Not necessarily this, but, there are organizations and, communities that you can work with to help you get through trying times like this. Don't go through this alone. Make sure that you use your connections and your networks to be able to, sustain yourself through what we're going through now. And the third part of this is use this as an opportunity. And mean that is not being facetious about that, but look at your own internal business processes, your own internal operations, and learn from what's happening to you now, so you can take that and then apply that to make both yourself successful, but your business is successful going forward. So I just wanted to put that out there because I'm a huge leadership dweeb, and that oftentimes gets lost in technology sometimes.
No, hey, look, it's well stated, well teed up. So really use this opportunity into a pivot in your mindset to pivot off of what Mark's saying, building on what you're saying, Stan, is create a learning experience, a learning mindset out of this crisis that you're going through. So let's define crisis. I mean, there's so many different definitions in context to the enterprise, in context to being a tech leader. We were at a summit in Orlando when this really all broke. And I said, you know what, to your point, Stan, I said, what got you here today isn't going to get you through this going forward. Talk to us a little bit more about crisis leadership, crisis thinking, and how to act as a real champion, a leader with courage and passion.
So, when something like this goes down, the business guys look at you as either the CIO or the CISO or the technology leader to be able, because the environment that we're in, is completely supported by technology. Look at what we're doing now. They're looking at you to be able to provide those tools to enable their business, your business, or your organization or your agency to continue to function in this environment. So looking at that and doing some, intense navel gazing about what you've done up to this point and what you can do to change to be able to enable that. The things that, again, from a technology perspective, that actually is apropos now. What got you and worked in the past to this point is not going to get you to where you need to be from a technology, tools, practices, and threat perspective to get you moving forward to be able to support your businesses in the environment that you're in now.
So when you think about that and you think about Zscaler, just a little context of Zscaler. I'll give you about a minute on context, why Zscaler matters. Why are you relevant? This is your elevator pitch, Stan. This is the moment.
Yeah. So, and again, I haven't shaved in forever. So, I'm looking kind of scruffy. But so essentially, I'm the global chief information security officer for Zscaler. So, I deal with the enterprise and stuff like that. I have a bunch of jobs, but one of the value proposition for Zscaler is, it's a security product that was built for the cloud, which is essentially everything that we're going through now. So the idea is to provide secure access to applications and data using an outbound inline full security stack. You can hear the wind kicking up, it's fixing the storm. As well as being able to provide at scale access to applications and data, both in your legacy data center and in the cloud, no matter where your people are. at scale. And just a little bit about the ability to scale, because that's something that we're talking about, because this is an issue for everybody, is we've brought on millions and millions and not millions, several million users in the last 3 weeks without a hiccup, to enable organizations to be able to continue to operate and continue to exist so that they can continue to drive the economy and deliver goods and services for companies. Elevator pitch. I'm not really good at that, but
I was watching Kramer last night, and they had Benioff was on,
yeah.
and he's kind of like the poster guy for cloud, right? When he came on the
Oh, yeah.
scene after he left Oracle, and it's not software, it's cloud, it's SaaS, and it looks like cloud and the whole SaaS movement really ends up winning in this new environment, in this new architecture. Why?
Scalability. The ability to deploy and scale quickly is the promise of the cloud. And, essentially, most CIOs and CISOs don't look at themselves as having a global role, but they do, whether they know it or not, because they have third-party providers, they have customers, they have business partners, they have operations globally. So you have to look at it from a global perspective, and traditional architecture and traditional data centers don't scale to a global model. So you have to start looking at yourself from a global perspective, that you do have a global role, whether you think you do or not, you have one. So you have to, and the only thing technology that really supports that type of scalability across the globe is cloud. And we see that with the massive adoption of Office 365, the massive Workday, Salesforce, ServiceNow, those types of services have just exploded in the last, 36 months, to where they're essentially, providing services across the globe for everybody, and they have the capacity to be able to support that, which is really cool.
That's there are many of our friends out of the Valley. What are the risks that you're
I'm
seeing?
in Washington, D.C., so don't tag me with that. No,
I'm okay with that. I'm from both coasts, the Valley and in New York. So actually, we're all virtual. We're all digital. Right? This is back to when we grew up, the Jetsons, right? Remember that? You said that you will never see video conferencing like that in the 60s.
So
right?
I worked, one of my first jobs when I got out of the military and went into the private sector and stuff like that, and after DARPA, was with Tamberg, which was one of the first video teleconferencing companies to be created. And it's, and we always used to dream of this, if we could only get enough bandwidth to do, and here we are, ubiquitous bandwidth, being able to do something like this was something that we didn't think of back then.
Thank you for the history and the context. So listen, most have been around for 20, 30, some 40 years in this industry. What are the new threat vectors that you're seeing out there? Where should the CIO and the CISO be pointing towards now?
Okay, so right now, the most important thing, the biggest threat vector are, targeted phishing accounts. The slime comes out when bad things happen. We see it happen with earthquakes, hurricanes, any kind of natural disaster, and this is nothing different. We're seeing a lot of targeted phishing emails around COVID information, anything that preys on individuals' fears or desire to have information, because the humans are, informational animals. The more information that we can suck in, either good, right, wrong, or bad, we'll use it. So the bad guys are using it. So one of the things that I'm telling everybody is your folks, typically from a cybersecurity perspective, have herd immunity. They can pop up over their cube and they can ask their buddy Kevin, hey, Kevin, is this a good email? That doesn't exist anymore. So the fact that they're not roaming the halls and not seeing security awareness posters and stuff, talk to your folks about cybersecurity. It is more important now than it has ever been when they were in the office. And there's a risk compensation, which means, you act differently based upon the protections that you think you have. Remember when we were young, we used to drive, nobody hauled ass down the highway at 90 miles an hour because, if you crashed, you had a lap belt and no airbags, none of that. Now we don't have a problem doing that because the protections are in place to be able to, give us some type of choice or chance that we'll survive a crash. Users behave in the same way. They'll exhibit more risky behaviors based upon the protections that they think they have. They're not in your office anymore, so they're going to behave at home the same way they behave in your office, thinking that those protections are there. They're probably not. So educate your users.
What percentage of all breaches start with an email?
I think they're tabulating the numbers for last year, but I'm guessing I saw mid-year it was about 80%.
Wow, pretty high, right?
Yep, it's way up there. I mean, and it, that's a credential for us.
So Stan, going forward, what do you envision the new normal to look like?
We're living it. So the cool thing about all of this is cool as well as, and I'm a silver lining kind of guy. I always, never look good crisis getaways for as far as education and trying to change the way that I think about things. Is organizations are going to look around and, oftentimes up until this point, they've talked about, nobody was a big fan of telework because they didn't think people were productive or that they were doing what they needed to be, out of sight, out of mind. And your work to the company was gauged by how often you were at your desk, not necessarily by the output of what your efforts were. That is what has changed with the result of this. I'm more busy now. I thought, hey, I'm gonna I'm busier than I've ever been in my life. And I think that is essentially working from home, enabling your organization to work remotely is going to be what our new normal is. This was going to be what what we were planning on in 18 to 24 months. This has accelerated that shift to this. Companies are going to look around, hey, do we need as much space? Do we need as much, traffic? This has been wonderful for the environment. If you talk from a leads perspective, we can, I saw pictures in India, they can actually see the Himalayas now. There's no smog in LA. The pictures from space that, the ISS is taking and NASA are taking, pollution is dissipating. There aren't as many people on the roads. This is awesome for the environment. So I think this is what our new normal is going to look like. Long and winded answer to a short question.
Great stuff. Fascinating, Stan. Really engaging interview. Really appreciate your coming on the program today. Two takeaways. How do people learn more about Zscaler? And do you have an annual conference that might be virtual for now and maybe physical at some point? And do you have an institute to learn more?
Sure. So again, anybody can go to www.zscaler.com. There's lots and lots of, again, we're a technology company, a cybersecurity technology company. So there are lots of reference material there, both for general consumption as well as for pandemic planning and stuff like that, like everybody else is doing. We do have a annual security conference or annual user conference or a annual conference. That's going to be virtual. It's going to be in June. There's going to be more information coming on that. And if you really can't get a hold of anybody, send me an email. I'll forward you off to the people that you need to go to.
Excellent. Great stuff, Stan. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your thought leadership and support of the program. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks for having me on. Excellent.
Great. So next up is a good friend and long-term supporter of the HMG platform and network, Jim Swanson, the EVP and CIO of Johnson & Johnson, one of America's top companies. Jim, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Hunter. Glad to be here.
Great to see you. Wow, what circumstances, right? So a global pandemic. What was on your mind when you first heard of this in Asia and saw it kind of migrate across the globe? And what were you thinking about as you calibrated your whole global viewpoint? Johnson & Johnson, obviously one of the prize jewels of the United States, of being one of the, probably historically, one of the most innovative companies and principled companies, right? Value-based companies and really focusing on customers and clients.
Yeah, so as you say, we're a global company. When it first hit in Wuhan, China is a super important market for us. We do produce a lot of products in China. We have a number of employees in China. So when China first hit, our first concern is for our employees and making sure that they're safe and that we could help them with whatever the issues were. And this was certainly unprecedented, the things they were dealing with. The second important thing was we have life-saving products, and we had to make sure logistically we could get raw materials to our plants, we could manufacture at our sites, and we could also distribute because the country at the time was really locking down sites. They were locking down import-exports. They were locking down even raw materials within the country. So we had to manage both of those things concurrently and work not only within the technology function, but also across the whole business leadership. So the good news is we're driven by our credo, and our credo does drive. take care of our patients first. We then take care of our employees, and then our communities that we work in. And then if we do all those things well, then we expect a fair return from shareholders. So we use the credo to how we act and we operate, and it allowed us to really activate quickly for China and put in places things like making sure that we could have connectivity at the plants, make sure that we could reach our employees to understand how they're doing, make sure we had critical supplies for their personal safety as well as for production. We could work with our logistics partners to make sure we got product out the door to the people that need it. And that became a template for us as the pandemic moved across the globe. We would take that template across the markets and regions and get learnings and be adaptive. Back to Mark's point, we were kind of disrupting ourselves as we were continually learning what worked well in that market, how do we apply that, and our Asian leadership team really stood up and really helped us lead through this. And as we saw the pandemic move to other markets, we leveraged that expertise in Europe, we've leveraged it in the US and Latin America. And although we all want this pandemic to be over, we're managing this, I think, very well. And at this point, we have about 81% of our workforce remote, and that's over 130,000 employees. We have just as many vendors connecting in remotely securely. We're distributing our products effectively. We're using data science and analytics to predict outcomes and forecasts. And so we're using a ton of technology to really drive safety of employees and getting products to the patients and consumers that need it, fulfilling our credo, but also to the points already made, we're in a new normal around how technology is really enabling how we think. And I think this is the new norm as we go forward.
So it's, thank you. So it's challenging, it's engaging, it's, be honest, like can be scary, right? Just as you walk into this envelope, the challenges that come at you, how do you stay open towards all dimensions intellectually, emotionally, and stay centered and figure out your priorities as you work this across the globe and engaging individuals and your teams to mobilize them?
Yeah, so I got to give a huge credit to my organization. I've been so proud of them, how they've really stood up and really taken a lead position. So one of the first things we did was create a very small crisis management team within the technology function, and there's a broader crisis management team, which I'm part of in J&J, and we meet daily. And using that team, we then said, where are the critical focus areas? So supply chain was critical for us for the reasons I've already mentioned. So somebody leading the JJT or technology part with the supply chain organization. We have a global services organization. So making sure people get paid, make sure they have their benefits, make sure if there's questions around COVID, they have a sick member. What about coming onto the site? What should I be worried about? Having a team dedicated there, and then having a team dedicated for infrastructure and continuity and network. And that small team, I meet with them regularly, are then able to activate based on the priorities and things we need to work on, whether it be continuity, network expansion, critical systems and business continuity for disaster recovery, or how we engage our healthcare professionals, because a lot of the hospitals have now restricted access, yet they still need our information. So we're using digital capabilities to connect in real time. And we've seen, I'll use Latin America as an example, we've gone from normally 3,000 visits with healthcare professionals a day, personal one-on-one visits across Latin America, to those going to 0, and now 900 to 1,000 digital interactions. And that continues to grow and double. And so we've used this small team to make sure we strategize and we plan where are the areas we need to focus on. We then use the broader organization to activate wherever the pandemic is, wherever the issues are, whether regional, geographically, functionally. Again, we have 3 divisions we got to manage for: consumer, pharmaceuticals, and medical devices. And using this team of people and the leadership that we have and the really outstanding employees that we have with the mission we have, it's amazing to watch what a company of 130,000 employees can do when we're all focused on the same mission. I've never been prouder of an organization and the impact that we're having and the ability to maintain continuity in a very uncertain time that is constantly changing.
You know, Jim, you've had an amazing career, Monsanto, of course, most recently Bayer, and now J&J. How do you go about prioritizing your focus areas, and where do you spend your time? I mean, now in the new normal, many of us are working 12 to 14 hours.
Yeah, I do think if you look at the metric, I think people work harder when they work at home. You need to remind yourself to take breaks, to relax your mind a little bit and make sure you're re-energizing. So I encourage everybody to do that. But when you actually go into a situation like this, knowing you don't have all the answers, if you take a dose of humility, knowing you got incredibly bright people in your organization, if you can empower them, if you can make sure they understand they're the leader or thought leader in that particular area, it would be supply chain, global services, payroll systems, critical infrastructure, network, it's amazing not only how they exceed your expectations, they demonstrate amazing, amazing leadership. And so being able to just make sure you can orchestrate the priorities, but then activate your incredible talent to do what they do best, and then pull that together as you're moving from situation to situation, whether it be seeing the pandemic move, how you have to engage more of your local or country leaders in a region, whether it be, we've got business continuity plan, now we have to work on critical systems, or now we got to work on connectivity and payroll systems. You start to really get to a cadence of how do you manage in this crisis. And even though we're not done, even though there's more things that'll come at us, we've been at this for 4+ months now. I feel very confident, and even when I talk to our executive committee, including our CEO, the recognition that we're getting from technology from them is truly incredible and truly supportive, because they see the role technology is playing, but that's coupled with the role our supply chain organization is playing, our health and human services playing, our financial organizations playing, our commercial and our R&D. We're in the middle of trying to develop a vaccine. People are working 24/7. We've announced the lead candidate, which is great. We're going to use a vaccine platform that's been tested and proven in over 50,000 human beings in other vaccine areas, and working hard to deliver a vaccine by 2021. So you have this mission, you have this amazing set of talent that if you're humble enough and you activate and empower them, they will move mountains for you. And you're adaptive and agile as things get flown at you. How do you address it and approach it?
We have a question from one of our attendees, Urs Foley, from the FWSIM chapters. Question. She's a board member now of a couple of companies. She said, "What business practices do you think will become obsolete? What is a little bit more around the new normal?"
Yeah, I think maybe less business practice, but it's new ways of operating. So if I use again the commercial model as one example, where you're used to seeing armies of sales reps visiting doctors, hospitals, et cetera. The new normal is we're going to do that digital. And you have a younger healthcare professional group that wants to be more digital, and you have an older group that maybe we're less accustomed to that. But what we're seeing in this world, everybody's now gravitating towards how do I operate more digitally, and then how do you follow the life of the patient so you're giving information at the point in time you need it. That could be in supply chain, that could be R&D, and I think this heavy personalization is going to change the way we operate in healthcare. It's going to change the way that consumers and patients think about what services they need and what information they need. And I think it's going to make us all more responsive into outcomes, which is what we all really truly care about. We want a healthy patient, we want them cured, we want a healthy environment, we want to make sure innovations are being brought to the market as quickly as possible and used appropriately. So I think those are the things that are going to disrupt the business processes of old into much more of this real-time, information-based, data science-driven, information personalization-centric world that we're all going to drive towards, because it has a lot of value for the people that we care about, which is our patients, which is our family, it's our loved ones. And I think for me, it's tremendously exciting to be a CIO right now, to be part of not only this learning experience, but also how we can respond in our companies in the value we can create and what we can bring.
So would you agree, best time ever perhaps to be a CIO tech leader, one, in our industry, two, and a little bit more about, I love the idea of the humble leader. Why is humility important as you're sorting through your talent and resources?
Yeah, and I don't think there's a better time to be a CIO or a technology professional, because we're talking about raising the digital acumen, not of the 5,000 people in my organization who are already digitally acute. How do you raise the digital profile or skill set of 130,000 employees? How do you raise that for your working with your vendors and partners? How do you raise that for the patients and consumers that you work with? We have a tremendous opportunity in technology to raise the tide, which means all boats will raise with it. And I think we have to take that seriously as technology leaders, because our businesses depend on it. With all the disruptions happening, both business disruptions as well as technology disruptions, companies won't survive It's not that they won't get by, they won't survive without embracing more of how digital is going to transform their businesses. And this point about humility, I work with a ton of really smart people, and I kind of joke sometimes when I walk into rooms, so let's say my data science organization, when I walk in, the IQ drops 20 points. I mean, these are just scary, smart people. But with humility, you know that you can leverage that skill set that people have and let them be their best. And you can actually help bring together a common view of how do I now leverage all these diverse and wonderful skill sets for a common goal. And that's what I think leadership needs to be. It needs to be humble, but has to align an organization to common outcomes that all that diverse and inclusive thinking, which is super critical to be successful, is brought together to drive the outcomes that you want. And when you do that, I have never ceased to be amazed at how a company or organization performs with that kind of view, and how excited they are, the impact they have, and how proud they are, and they should be, of what they've been able to achieve together versus separate and individual.
Jim, this has been an awesome interview, really impressive. And that soundbite there may have been like in 14 years, an HMG package moment, all-star moment, the humble leader. I love it. So thank you very much for sharing that with us. We're going to invite in our other panelists and segue to a panel discussion here, Jim. Again, thank you for your thought leadership and your continued engagement.
Thank you.
Panelists, if you'd please join us, we would, we'll commence the session. We have Lookman Fazal, CIO and CDO from the New Jersey Transit Authority, Scott Strickland, EVP and CIO of Wyndham Resorts Worldwide. And we have Gabrielle Wolfson, CIO of Quest Diagnostics. Are we all live now there, Nikki? Good to go? Folks, you need to activate your cameras, right? There we go. Lookman, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for making the program. Opening comments, thoughts about well, first off, context at the New Jersey Transit Authority, and opening context of what was it like going through this whole crisis as it hit your purview or hit your desk?
Sure. So, New Jersey Transit is the third largest transit agency in US, and we transport 1 million people a day. So obviously with the social distancing, we have taken a 90% hit in our ridership. But, we are an essential service. We are first responders. And we are used to crisis in the past, whether it was 9/11 or Sandy. Work must not stop. Buses and trains must not stop, because we do transport essential employees even today to get them to that hospital or to that essential services that they need to. So over the years, we have matured as an organization and continue to mature. We have a very strong emergency management team in place. So this was just another, crisis. We were ready. We are ready. We were able to handle it. What was new about this one was, it was more technology focused than the previous crisis, because now, the social distancing aspect kicks in, and now how do you transform a company from, typically agencies have been, come to work, collaborate, that's how the mentality, the culture is from, a state agency or the federal agencies. You want to go to a place of work and continue business. This was the first time where that boundary was loosened, where now you're completely distributed. So it was a big technology shift, cultural shift, and we were able to do that. Excellent.
Lookman, a little background on your leadership style. We were talking earlier with Jim about leading you with humility, with Mark about being the lifelong learner and the self-disruptive leader. How would you characterize your leadership skill set?
So, technology, keeping technology aside, the people drive change. It's the people that makes things happen. So from a people perspective, we are, I'm a servant leader. I'm there to back them, to make sure that the team is successful. The talents are recognized. We are in the business of, business to consumer market, but I call it, we are in the human to human market. where the empathy, the care is very important, especially in a time of crisis like this.
And when you say what does the human to human market mean? A little more context or color around that, or maybe the mission of the organization.
So, you have heard of business to business, where two companies do business with each other. You have heard about business to consumer, where it's business to retail space. But now, you're keeping the human, and, sometimes you lose the human aspect of it. Keeping yourself in the position of your rider, of your consumer, and switching roles and thinking from their perspective. How would you want to be treated? What are the products that you are looking for? What are the technologies that is going to make your life easy? For example, if we were able to save 15 minutes of our ridership time on a daily basis, that's 15 million minutes of time savings that we can give back to our consumers or our customers.
Nice, excellent. And any kind of connectivity issues as you went to this remote work from home lifestyle?
No, actually, so with the investments that we made in the last couple of years, especially in technology, with the new leadership team, we actually were one of the few, I think, compared to our other peers, that we had an overnight shift from being on premise, coming to work culture, to becoming a distributed overnight work from home culture. Awesome.
And any lessons learned in your own leadership style, managing in crisis, a reflective moment, something that you want to share with our audience here today?
Yeah, I mean, I go with this that, no task is too small. No crisis is, can be handled. At the end, the fortunate thing for IT is that we are used to change. Every 3 to 5 years, we are by force asked to reinvent ourselves because technology changes. So IT was already ahead in terms of changing, whether given the situation. So it was just extending that mindset to the rest of the company. So
best time ever to be a leader in a crisis?
Always the best time. Always the best time.
Great. Thank you, Lookman. We'll circle back to you here in a minute. Can we bring out Gabrielle Wolfson, CIO of Quest Diagnostics? Gabrielle, can you please join the program?
Nice to see you, Hunter.
Great to see you. Thank you so much. You folks at Quest are doing some amazing things regarding this pandemic. A little context to Quest, a little context of your role there, and what are you doing?
We're doing a lot. So keeping in mind that Quest is just really the largest provider of diagnostics information services in the world. And we've been called to task by our government, by our people, by the people in the country, to provide testing services like never before. So we had to scale up our volumes. We had to implement, all the capabilities that are needed to perform this COVID-19 tested, in a matter of days. So, in a normal day-to-day type of situation, it takes anywhere between 3 months and a year to bring a test to market. And in our case, once we got the FDA approval on February 29th, we are ready to go on March 9th. So we're talking about just a dramatic change. And I have to say that the Quest extended team, the family of Quest, has come together like never before, working around the clock to bring all these tests, to the people in need. So everybody in the company is just so feels the urgency and feels the impact that the company is making, from a testing perspective. As you watch the news broadcast, and then, every subject that's there and in discussion comes back to testing. And I have to say that we had to go through a lot, and we're going through a lot to battle this virus.
What factors have made a difference in Quest during this challenging time?
So a lot of components here. So from a Quest perspective, first of all, we brought our strength, what we do from a testing perspective, upfront to respond to this crisis. Being one of the largest, testing companies in the world, our focus is very much on innovation. It's part of our DNA. In addition to what we do from a just a normal testing, biological testing perspective. We also do a lot of work in molecular and genetic testing, for example. We do a lot of work across the board. So we are used to this pace of change, of innovation. We are very aggressive when we talk about innovation, of course, in the context of quality and privacy and all those things. You know, we had to leverage those abilities and just to come to the table and execute like never before. So from a Quest perspective, our presence in the US, we have over 6,500 touch points with our patients across the board. And it's a very complex supply chain that leverages airplanes and all sorts of modes of transportation to take specimens to the laboratories that need to perform the work. You know, from the perspective of having this infrastructure, but also from a technology point of view, being able to scale up, being able to have those data insights and just partner across the board with all the players in the healthcare ecosystem made a huge difference. So for example, we are connected with all the EMRs around, so over 500 EMRs. We already talk to all the hospitals, so all the you know, physician groups and such, all the healthcare plans. So we are in the center of everything that needs to be connected, and it's making a difference today in this fight against this terrible virus. So all of these had to be leveraged in a way that worked immediately. We couldn't afford to miss a step. We had to stay connected amongst ourselves and with our partners to bring all of our capabilities, you know, to market and service the population.
I'm a happy client, by the way. I love your services, so thank you very much. And I totally trusting the platform and the company. When you think about your leadership style, Gabrielle, and when Jim was talking about humility leadership, how would you characterize your leadership style?
So from my perspective, and by the way, I do believe, and it's just only fully with a humble approach, but I think that for us, the focus on innovation, of changing the status quo, we are challenged daily, especially now in this environment, you know, to change the status quo, to break the mold, to be creative and think out of the box and come up with solutions that work today. Maybe, you know, especially when you think about the healthcare industry in a traditional sense, innovation had to have a different pace because we had to go through validation, through different things that, you know, control quality and such. But nowadays, without, you know, taking our focus away from quality and privacy and all those elements, we have to find a way to, you know, accelerate innovation. So having that drive, having that grit to go forward and, you know, find solutions to real-time you know, issues. I mean, that's really what's necessary in today's environment.
You know, Gabrielle, Jim had mentioned that you've been on this for 4 months, working across the globe. You probably had a similar purview in terms of as it worked away, the virus worked its way across the globe. Give us some hope. What do you see? What are you hearing relative to the future?
So we hear the reports in the media every day, but you know, we hope that we reach and we have reached the peak already and just going in the right direction. It's really important to understand our data, to understand trends. When you talk about machine learning, when you talk about AI, well, this is the prime time for us to apply those concepts. And it's just really important to be able to gather the pertinent data points. It's important to apply technologies in a way that we've never applied them before to get very quickly to the information that we need that talk to trends and the future. In addition to it, of course, and I'm sure you've heard about serology and about this serological test that we're all working on, and we just accelerating our efforts to bring to market. And that test is going to be looking at antibodies and our immune systems. And it's just really working, you know, within this solution that needs to be brought to fruition that will enable us to restart the economy, to go back to work, to go back to social interactions. And we are getting very close. We're getting very close. Within a matter of days, will be able to launch this test. There is a lot of collaboration across the healthcare industry. A lot of companies are coming together to work on it. You know, I think we're making tremendous strides. When we get to serology, you know, we can leverage blood testing, which is a totally different situation from a testing perspective. While today, you know, we are performing about 35,000 tests a day for the current COVID test. When we talk about serology, we can scale up to 300,000 tests a day. And so, you know, that's going to be a major milestone, and it's going to really make a huge difference for us to be able to get back to normal. So a lot of good things are happening. There are a lot of, you know, bright, impressive people working from a science perspective, from a medical point of view to bring these solutions to the market. Here at Quest, we do have our very impressive teams of doctors and scientists. We all motivated to get this done.
Gabrielle, thank you very much. Please stay with us. I'll circle back to you in a minute. Let me welcome Scott Strickland, EVP and CIO for Wyndham Hotels. Scott, welcome.
Thank you, Hunter.
Great to see you. So give us a little context, Scott. When this came into your purview, we began to track it again across the globe. What were you beginning to think about, and how were you readying your team?
Great. Before I start, I'd like to just thank Jim and Gabrielle for their message of hope. We need some hope right now, especially in our industry. So thank you guys, and thank your companies for everything that you're doing. So Wyndham Hotels, many people don't know, we're actually the world's largest hotel company by number of locations. So we have over 9,000 hotels globally. So to your point, Hunter, we were starting to see this in China, dealing with this in China in December and January. And our 1,200 hotels in China served as the proverbial canary in the coal mine for us. So we were able to see occupancy gradually decrease, and now we're able to see occupancy gradually increase on the tail end of the crisis as well. So that gives us a model. As we saw this happen in China, obviously we shut down our China offices. We shut down a number of our hotels in China as well. Well over half of our hotels in China were shut down. We repurposed roughly 100 of them as well into hospitals and quarantine centers at the bequest of the Chinese government, but we helped them out as well. So we saw a little bit of this coming before it came here, and we were able to apply some of our learnings from shutting down the hotels there and shutting down our office there to what we needed to do here in North America and in EMEA.
What were some of the early learnings that you're actually implementing here now in the States?
So a couple of things we saw is right away, you need to provide direction to your team. When we started to plan for this, we said, guys, we don't have months. We have weeks, and in some cases, we may only have days to respond to this. When we had one of our first big cross-functional meetings on this, we were actually 4 days out from when we ended up exiting our Parsippany campus office. So the team really needed direction and that sense of urgency on, hey, we're going to have to think outside of the proverbial box here. So that's one of the first things we did. The second we did is we looked at some of the lessons that we had from China. And those were cloud solutions, of course, work best. They always do. And we're pleased to say that over the past 3 years, we used to be 95% on-prem, and now we use VPN for the equivalent of 4 apps. So, and our goal over the next 6 months is to get those 4 apps moved into the cloud so we don't even have to VPN anymore. Another thing we discovered is we needed to reward some unorthodox thinking. We needed to set up kiosks down in our cafe so that we could install tokens for people, so we could explain to them how to reset their passwords remotely. So we could just take them through how to set up a dual monitor setup at home. And we did this over, we had 16-hour kiosks from 7 a.m. until midnight every day on Parsippany campus, for those 3 days leading up while we helped people get ready for that work from home. And then finally, one of the learnings we had, and we heard it from our Chinese team loud and clear, is this isn't just a work from home environment. This is a work under lockdown environment. And that's very different. That means that your spouse may be sitting next to you, your partner may be next to you. That means your kids may be home. That may mean that you are concerned or worried about where your next paycheck is coming from or the status of your neighbors and your personal health. That's different than normal work from home, and that increases the stress level of everybody that's involved in the company.
Thank you. How would you depict your leadership style in this crisis? What would you think people would say of you, both up the chain and down in your directs?
So I think it's very similar to Lookman, and as he indicated, in terms of that servant-based leadership. So servant-based leadership means different things at different times. In this case, it could mean removing obstacles for somebody that needed, hey, I'll approve that PO, move forward, don't worry about it. It could mean that we need to provide some air cover. It could mean that we need coaching, or this is a coaching or mentoring or growth opportunity. It could mean just being optimistic. Sometimes people are looking for some optimism out there. And in case you haven't noticed, I'm a pretty outgoing person. So that optimism, I think, really helped. I hope helped the team get to where they are.
Excellent. When you think about the crisis again, as it unfolded, what did you learn about yourself and your as you went through it and leading?
So a couple things, actually. One of them is it gave me a great opportunity to finally get my mother-in-law to install Zoom so that she could see her kids. Secondly, it really gave me an opportunity to reconnect with my family. Like most of the leaders here, I travel a lot. I travel globally a lot, and being home now, I've been home for 4.5 weeks. My wife realized this is the most I've ever been home in the past 12 years in a single stretch. So that's helped me learn a lot. In terms of my leadership style and everything, I learned that personally, I need to do two things with my team in terms of communication. You need to have big, broad, grand communications in terms of emails or video blogs, but then you need some one-on-one communication. You need little gestures, just texting somebody and saying, that was great. You coming up with that yesterday really meant a lot, and sending them a little thank you text, because you can't slide by their office anymore. You can't high five them in the hallway anymore. Just having those little gestures helped.
That's brilliant, Scott. Excellent. Great points. We'll hold that thought right there. We'll circle back to you here in a minute.
Thanks, Hunter.
Thank you. Jim, over to you. If you would jump back into the fray here. Same idea. What did you learn about yourself and your own leadership style this time around? Because you've been through probably, 4, 5, 6 global crises in your career, I'm guessing. What did you learn most about this one? And once one global CTO said this to me yesterday on our planning call for the upcoming summit. They said, Hunter, this isn't a sprint. This is more like a marathon, and that you've been on the wash for 4 months, following this across the globe. What are you thinking now?
Yeah, I mean, J&J is such a big place. They got 130,000 employees, 3 major divisions, hundreds of thousands of SKUs, and billion patients we serve in our consumer division alone. I think about Tylenol and some of the products that most of the world takes. What you learn when you go through this is how powerful when you can align a company like J&J to a common outcome and a common goal, and how the organization just rallies behind it, whether it be from ensuring everybody's safe, to making sure our patients have what they need, to how do we chip in to support supply chain, or how do we work 24/7 with our researchers to develop a vaccine. It's truly amazing and humbling to see how a company and its partners, for that matter, can respond. And I've been really proud of the partners that works with us. They've been reaching out to us. Hey, what do you need? We know you're in healthcare and a life-saving mission. How do we help you? And I've sent letters to CEOs of our partners, thanking them, thanking that making sure their employees are safe as well, because that's really critical for us. And just the gratitude for them working with us to try to not only get through this pandemic, but come through it in a way that actually we're a lot better as a result. So you never cease to amaze when you can align on a strategy, how effective you could be if everybody's passionate behind it. And when Scott talked about communication, I don't think we can ever communicate enough. God love our communication professionals. They have a skill set that most of us as technologists don't have, but we have to be able to leverage that. You got to be able to communicate to your business partners, to your employees, to your patients, to your partners, your third-party suppliers, around the importance of their role in this mission. And we've seen a tremendous amount of value as we're communicating from the top of the organization, our CEO, through the executive committee, through levels of leadership and organization all around the globe, and making sure it's bi-directional, making sure it's just not a one-way, It's actually what information can you leverage and how do you apply that learning, because we're constantly learning. And the Asia example was great for us because we learned a lot as we moved into Europe, and we learned a lot from Europe as we moved to North America, and then North America to Latin America. So being able to harness that and really drive that has really made a huge difference in how we engage, respond, be adaptive, be innovative, because we're doing a lot of innovation to be able to do this in the right way. And then coming out of it, how do we sustain this thinking, not the crisis side of it, but the thinking and how valuable it's been to now apply it as part of how we run our company and our services and the value proposition as a core of what we do, even at a faster and more effective pace.
I knew you were going to go take it from humility to gratitude. I said, wow, you go from humility to gratitude to servant leadership to engaging, inciting the imagination of thinking differently, to take a Steve Jobs quote, or Ram Shriram, never let a good crisis go to waste. You know, what's the good that's going to come out of this for you as you lead courageously for your team, for your company, and for your family and the world at large? What's the good that's going to come out of it, Jim?
Yeah, I mean, I had a one-on-one with our CEO the other day and our vice chairman, and I said, this is the new normal. We're not going to go back to how we operated before. We're going to operate in this way in the future, and I think it's actually a really good thing. I think it's a really good outcome because we're going to have more connected information. We're going to share information more. We're going to get out of our silos and be much more holistic in our thinking as we go forward. And it's always, in our case, anchored on the people we serve, which is patients, which is people like you and me, people like our parents, our loved ones that we care deeply about. So I think that's a tremendous positive, and I'll reinforce with my organization repeatedly, and I'll use this pandemic as the experience set. Look at what we were able to accomplish in this pandemic. Why can't we do this in everything we do? The innovation, the disruption, the relying on each other, the leadership development. It's another thing I always look at. When you're in a crisis, I've learned this long ago, your real leaders stand up. And it's nothing to do with who's on an org chart. You will see you could have a co-op that's demonstrating more leadership than a director does, but you look at those people that are demonstrating in the face of uncertainty, who's leading, and those are the people you want to have others mirror. You want to exemplify that behavior. So you give people something good to look at as they continually learn and evolve. And I think we will be 10 times stronger coming out of this than when we went into it.
Interesting. And when you look at that individual that's leading courageously and delivering value, demonstrative value to the team and the company, what are you looking for? What are the specifics that you're looking for?
I'm looking for their agility, their adaptiveness. I'm looking for their ability to be innovative. I'm looking for their ability to pull others with them. You know, if somebody thinks they could fight this all themselves and they take the flag by themselves, they're going to die on that hill really quickly. They've got to be able to create followership. They have to be able to create a diverse team, because that diversity, I can't tell you how important that is. And it's every kind of diversity you can imagine. That diverse team creates better thinking and better results. And so those are some of the skills. And are they able to adapt and learn and even say, hey, I got this one wrong. How quickly can I pivot based on some new insights to take it in a new direction? Those are the things that I look for in leadership and in my team. And I can't tell you how proud I am of my organization. I could spend hours just example after example of how they're showing up. But those are some of the things I look for.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jim. I'll circle back to you here in a minute. Lookman, back over to you. When you think of all of the people in your organization working remotely from home, how do you keep people engaged? And what are the tools and your style in keeping people engaged and making sure that they're dialed in?
Yeah, so, shout out to Zscaler and Stan for providing us excellent technologies for our employees to be productive. So the human side, I'll come back to that, because, how do you show care? How do you show that you're there for your employees? So one of the things, we have internally going on is no employee left behind, which means that, I should reach out to, 3 levels below me. They should reach out to 3 levels below them. And the reaching out is not, what did you produce today? Nothing to do with work. It's all about, how's your family doing? How are you handling, your 4.5 weeks at home? Are you getting along? with your environment and your wife, adding the human touch to that, it's very important. So that's what people look for. Technology is just on the side. It'll change tomorrow, but people will stay.
And the kind of platforms that you're working with to keep people engaged, technical platforms?
So we are big into Microsoft. We are a Microsoft shop. So we have Teams and Office 365, all those products. Zscaler has been very good in terms of proxy, seamless VPN. So VPN, the old VPN, you had to have a client, log in, and only then you could access the on-prem application. With Zscaler's ZPA product. It's seamless to the person. They don't even know whether the application is sitting in a data center or in the cloud.
Are we able to, I was listening to Benioff last night on Kramer, and he's putting a pledge out there to corporate chiefs, and I'll extend it to CIOs. Are you able to hold on to your employees during this tough time and hopefully get ready for that, not the V, not the L, but maybe a U recovery? And actually in that segment, they were already talking about 2022.
Yeah, actually ours is a reverse. So we feel that we are going to be a lot more attractive company, because being part of the state and also an agency, we are essential to the economy. So we do want our riders to come back. We do want the economy to grow. Ours is the largest ride-sharing vehicle. If you really come to think of it, it's better for the environment, better for less cars, less accidents. The more you take in terms of transit and public transportation. So we want the economy to come back. So what we are trying to make sure that people hear that there will be lots of incentives, to make that happen, and that's what we're working on.
Lookman, thank you. Any learning moments over the past 30 days that have been really ahas for you that you could feel yourself growing?
It's very important to have the right support, the right mechanism in place. And it starts at every level, right? If the CFO didn't believe in technology, he wouldn't fund us, for example. If the CEO didn't believe that, technology is key to enabling and being a successful differentiator for the transit organization, he wouldn't support us. So it's very important to build that ecosystem around you, not just with the internal leadership team, but also with the vendors. There have been several vendors who have stepped above and beyond. I'm going to send them, just like I send my employees, I stay connected with them. I'm going to send the same note to those vendors as well, because they really stepped up. They turned out not to be just a vendor waiting for the invoice and the check, but really being partnered and helping us drive through this crisis.
Excellent. Thank you, Lookman. Gabrielle, back over to you. Please join me. Question for you. What are the challenges that you've experienced, and how have you and your team overcome those challenges in this new normal?
Yeah, we had, obviously, like everybody else, we had to change our mode of engagement overnight. So remote work, had to be implemented in a matter of days. And I think that as we change the interactions, as we change the way we come together, communication is very important. So face-to-face, using the different tools that we have, I think that it makes a huge difference. But I think that from a technology team perspective, the people that we depend on day in, day out, they need to understand the impact their efforts are making on the business and on the people that we're servicing. So bringing together, that clarity at every step of the way, of how we connect what we do with the impact that we're making around us, it's been very important for us. But also, I think that the value of partnerships and being engaged across the board, not just with our business internally, but all these partners that have to come to the table and just really step up to help us succeed. So from a technology point of view, from a science collaboration, instrumentation that had to be in place immediately, all those connections and networks that need to come together and step up in a big way are critical. So a lot of components to the changing working environment. Again, I come back to the fact that communication is key. communication is so much more complex nowadays when we do connect in a remote way, when we have to come together and resolve issues, and plan for the future. I have to say that we also have become a lot more agile. So nowadays we meet multiple times a day. We do touch base with people that maybe we didn't touch base as often in the past. So there are a lot of changes going forward.
How do you find managing through video, right? My personal style has been changed and evolved over the past month. I actually find I get a lot more done through video because there's a level of abstraction where you focus in and around facts really quickly and the plan forward, the plan ahead, right?
Yeah, no, it's been very productive for us. So I think that the whole team, the entire business has just adapted very quickly to the new environment. So communicating through video, having the ability to stand up a meeting very quickly, share information, I think it's just it's benefited us tremendously. We are a lot more agile. We are very quick in making decisions, and I think this face-to-face interaction makes a huge difference in keeping us connected in the right way.
It's interesting. One of our clients at a Toronto summit last year said some 6% of all communications within the enterprise was done on video a year ago, well, 10 months ago. And it would be interesting to get that stat here today. It's probably upwards of 60 to 80%. So the video companies are certainly doing incredibly well. The collaboration tool companies are doing incredibly well. Technology companies, SaaS companies, cloud companies doing incredibly well. When you think about your team, Gabrielle, at Quest, what are your teams at Quest doing differently to connect and team and build that connectivity together?
We are connected, I would say, 24/7, especially in technology where we can't afford to be down for any period of time. I think that level of engagement and awareness and availability is there. So being able to prioritize on a continuous basis, being able to reach out and connect really in an agile way, that's been accelerated 100 times over. So I think that there are behavior changes that I think that are going to go on after this crisis, is behind us. It's just a different way of coming together and just executing.
How does the C-suite view technology before, during, and after? A facilitator, enabler, or accelerator of innovation at Quest?
Well, technology is front and center in everything we do in our industry and at Quest. And we've been viewed as full partners in innovation, accelerators actually from that perspective. At the same time, we need to make sure that we ensure that stability of service and quality of service. So we play, viewed from different perspectives, but I think that strong partnership across the board is in place.
And skill set that you're looking for as you redesign and reshape your IT enterprise organization, what kind of skill sets do you think you really need most?
So in terms of understanding the business needs, in terms of, making the connection between the different types of aspects of technology that would make a difference, that makes sense for the business. Those type of resources that understand both business and technology are critical for us. I mentioned before the fact that data is very important as well, and understanding data insights, leveraging it to add value to a business, but to the larger population and the healthcare industry. That's really an area of focus for us as well. So really that view of the entire large enterprise architecture aspect, as well as business focus that drive towards innovation.
Thank you very much for the answer. Just kind of a real process tactical question in terms of managing a cadence. Again, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon here. Who knows if wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, how long we're in this new normal before the economy, the world opens up, let's say that again, and we go to a baseball game or a football game. Question for you. How do you do management meetings, your senior leadership team meetings? Are they daily stand-ups, or how do you structure that and the cadence?
Yeah, I mean, we do have daily stand-ups. We have adapted what is being traditionally known as agile execution at all levels. Okay, so when we talk about the executive team from a business perspective, when we talk about the different businesses under the Quest umbrella or within the technology organization, we have become agile in everything we do. We have daily huddles multiple times a day. We follow up, we are zooming on results and engaging across the board, bringing the people that need to be involved, together at the right time. So it's just a different dynamic, a different level of energy that I see that has been adopted right away. And it's hard to believe that it's gonna just disappear once we get out of this new normal, because right now we're living in a totally different type of normal, which is elevated from all perspectives.
Gabrielle, you've had an amazing career, and we often address career as one of the tenets: leadership, innovation, reimagine, reinvent the customer journey, and career ascent. What career advice would you give an individual if they're in a role that they're not really particularly happy with right now, or they're looking to reinvent themselves and they want that next idea to help inspire them to be a better leader in a new role?
Yeah, I think that, the opportunities are out there. The world is changing around us. As we talk about all these changes in the way we connect, in the way we execute, we come together, there are all sorts of opportunities for new ideas that will make a difference. Bringing technology and not just business, but social dimensions together to come up with solutions that make a lot of sense. So, you don't have to be an expert just, in predefined fields to be able to bring it all together. Just be creative, open-minded, understand the needs, and just go forward. Don't feel afraid to try something new. So I think that's going to make a difference in the future. You'll see a different type of professional also from a technology point of view.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Gabrielle. Appreciate it. Thank you for being here today. Jim, welcome back to the program. Kind of final thoughts on the career ascent piece. Same question that I mentioned to Gabrielle. Thoughts around an individual who's really looking to reimagine, reinvent their career ascent. Where do you see the big opportunity in 1, 3, 5, 10 years in our space?
I think there's both the technical side of it and I'll call it the soft skill side. And I think you heard from a number of these speakers that were very eloquent in how they thought about both, whether it be Mark talking about being adaptive. I can't stress that enough. The world is changing so rapidly. I kind of joke with my own organization as a technology professional. If you're not staying current, you're not obsolete in 10 years. You're not obsolete in 3 years. You're obsolete in 18 months. That's the world we're in. Welcome to technology. And if you're not adaptive to the things that are evolving, continual learning, you're not going to be relevant. When Gabrielle talked about innovation and talked about continual disruptive behaviors and thinking, it's absolutely critical because we have to not just respond to where our business is going, we have to shape it. And we have to be the leaders to shape that because we have the technology and data experience that maybe our business partners, that's not their domain. And if we don't provide it, they'll get it, just not from us. And so we've got to be positioned for that. When Scott talked about that communication thread, and he talked a lot about how he's approaching his organization and really engaging them and where they want to go, I think he's exhibiting the leadership that you need to be driving and thinking, communicating and engaging. And when Lookman talked about servitude, about how he approaches, the role that he's in, and he's actually pulling people to him to drive towards his vision, and they'll run through walls for him, I bet. And so these are some of the behaviors you're seeing on what I think strong leaders are, whether you're a technology person, a commercial person, R&D, a process engineer. These are the skills you're going to need, the softer skills for the future. And then your technical skills to be relevant and competent. You've got to maintain those technical skills because that's our role, and they are changing rapidly. And you're never going to know all of it. So how do you engage others to stay current, to stay relevant, talk to others a lot? I mean, I spend a lot of time with a lot of other CIOs so I can learn from them and I can impart learnings to them. That community is so valuable to me because without it, none of us can be successful on our own. You just can't. These jobs are too big, they're too complex, you're dealing with too many things, well beyond whatever you learned in school. And so how do you create the network you need to be successful and relevant for the future? And if you're focused on that, you never worry about a job. You're actually looking for the best opportunities where you can have the best impact tied to your passion of what you love doing. And for me, it's in the sciences space, because I'm a scientist and a technologist. I've always been in companies that bridge those two things together. I can't think of a better place to be. And if you're in that mindset, you're going to be wildly successful, in my opinion.
That's awesome. Really good comments, Jim. Another great moment. You've been one of HMG's CIO of the Year award recipients. Thank you very much for your engagement and being part of that program. Other question for you, Jim. That whole idea of reimagining and reinventing business models, business ideas, and helping facilitate, enabling, or leading the business to that new idea. How do you go about that in just like 1 minute? It's a tough one, but it's, for some people, it's a leap. You know, the business might not want to hear it from the IT guy. How do you get that whole flywheel rolling?
Yeah, well, I think, and maybe borrowing a little bit from Gabrielle's thought, the analogy that I use is I view my role as a bit of a sand in the oyster. One of two things happen when you put sand in an oyster. Sand's an irritant. You either get spit out or you create a pearl, but you can't create a pearl with a little bit of irritation. So hopefully you don't get spit out, but you got to be some of that change agent, challenge the status quo, because the lens you're building around data, technology, and then how do you reimagine the business and things they care about? So they may not care which CRM platform I use, and they shouldn't. I should worry about that, but they want to care about the outcome. Am I improving the net promoter score for my physician that I'm working with? If I'm on supply chain, am I improving on time and full delivery? If I'm in R&D, am I improving the net present value of the pipeline? If I'm working with a hospital or a patient, am I improving an outcome, a health outcome? Now you're talking business terms. Now, what can we do together to drive that outcome? If you just orient your words to outcomes your business partners, your customers care about, it is transformative in how they view IT. And too many IT people still look at, well, I delivered a solution. That gets a very small clap from me. I want to look at adoption and I want to look at outcomes. If we start those vocabularies with our executive committees, the view of IT changes dramatically. Now you're pulled in, you're not trying to push, they're pulling on you. That is the secret sauce that I've seen. And you got to be a bit of that sand in the oyster. Otherwise, I don't know that you're being relevant. So
excellent. Love it, Jim. Awesome. Great comments. Thank you. Really appreciate your being here today, Jim. Thank you very much. Final word, Scott, you want to say just a goodbye or thank you very much, kind of final word, comment?
Thank you, everybody there. And I do want to just point out, I think we're all doing things for the larger community in this crisis. And that's one of the things that makes me most proud of working at Wyndham right now is we give rooms to first responders and open them up to become hospitals or shelters for the homeless. And I know each one of your companies is doing the same.
Excellent. Thanks, Scott. Lookman?
Yeah, just be fearless. Don't lose the human touch. Make sure that you're not afraid of change. That's how we are built. Speaking of that, I had sent in a poll request. I don't know if Nikki, if you can send that out towards the end or now, about how ready we were as a technology company when we switched from a remote work from home model. So if it's on your screen right now, will be a good analysis as far as how our team handled the situation.
Thank you, Lookman. Gabrielle, final word.
Thanks for having me today and the event. I mean, I think it's incredibly important to keep the technology leaders connected and exchanging ideas. As the world is changing around us, we have to come together and leverage our collective knowledge and experiences to move technology solutions forward. So thank you so much.
Well, look, I want to thank everyone here, the panelists, Zscaler, Stan, you were great. Really appreciate it. I see the polls results there. It looks like 1 week was the winner. Looks like, yeah. The physical summit scheduled, hopefully, folks, for July 16th in New Jersey at the Hyatt in New Brunswick. Hopefully you can make it. Hopefully we'll be there live and in person. Stay dialed into HMG Live. The new book that I'm working on that some of you have been in, that are going to be in, book 6. We're taking a bit of a pause on it and reopening the front end of the book and looking for crisis stories, interviews to put in the front end of the book to dovetail to the whole book. And it's all about reimagine, reinvent the enterprise. If you're interested in that, that's great. I think this was one of the best panels we've done in 13 years. Thank you, each of you, very much. And stay safe. Good to see you, folks. Thanks.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, everyone.
Everybody have a good